All right, today we're going to talk about section 3.2, where we're still talking about those angle relationships we learned in the first section. But now we're going to apply it to parallel lines. So all those angle relationships we talked about yesterday, alternate interior, corresponding, alternate exterior, consecutive interior. We're going to look at all those again, but now specifically with parallel lines. So let me ask you this. If I just gave you a pair of parallel lines and a transversal, we talked about that yesterday, so parallel lines with the line that's cutting through it. So these two lines are parallel, and usually it'll have some special marking. We can, you can barely see it over there, see there and there. But there's usually like an extra little filled in triangle that indicates those lines are parallel. Now, suppose I told you this angle was 55 degrees, and I said, could you fill in these other three angles that are near it? Well, I know you could, because we know about linear pairs and vertical angles. So we know vertical angles are congruent, and no matter which angle you look at, it makes a straight line, and this would be 125, and then vertical angles, this would be 125. Now, since the lines are parallel, that transversal is intersecting both parallel lines at the same slant, right? I mean, the line's not changing its slant. And so all of these angles will also be 125 and 55. And so when we look at the, I'm going to move this. It's in my way. I'll move it up there. If we look at these different angle relationships, for example, corresponding angles. Well, that would be like this one and this one. There's, remember, 4 pairs of corresponding angles. Notice they're congruent. And so what we have is if we have parallel lines, then corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so that's, we're not going to call it the corresponding angles theorem. We're going to say parallel lines, corresponding angles congruent. Similarly, if we look at alternate interiors, see these would be in red, those would be alternate interiors. Again, they're congruent. So we're going to say if we have parallel lines, then alternate interior angles are congruent. And that's how we would write our reason. Now, let's look at alternate exterior. These would be alternate exterior angles. Again, they're congruent. So we're going to say if we have parallel lines, then alternate exterior angles are congruent. And finally, we have the consecutive interior. Now, consecutive interior would be this and this. Notice they're not congruent, but they are supplementary. So we're going to say if we have parallel lines, then consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Okay, so if we have parallel lines, we know that those angle relationships are true. So here for this one, we are given one angle of 120. So only using our angle relationships, only with regard to this angle right here, knowing our angle relationships, can we identify 3 other angles that would be 120 degrees? Well, this one would be, because it's a vertical angle, okay? This one would be because it's alternate exterior angle, and this one would be 120 because it's a corresponding angle. So there we go. Again, see how it shows that these are parallel. It's a little triangle there. So knowing that they're parallel, we want to find the value of x. Now, there's a couple ways you could go about this. A variety of ways you could go about doing this. But what's important is that you get the right answer. So some students say, oh, this is 115, and they do x plus 5 plus 115 equals 180, or x plus 120 equals 180, or x equals 60. Okay, so we get that. But other students might not do it that way, but they might think, oh, I know this is the supplement, so this is 65, and then these, oops, and then these would be these would be corresponding. And so you could write x plus 5 equals 65, or x equals 60. So you see, like, there's different ways of approaching this problem, but any way you approach it, we get the right answer. And so now here we want to find the value of x. So again, there's different ways you could approach this. If we are using that angle 1, this would be the supplement. So 44 degrees. We also could figure out this is 44 degrees. These are alternate exterior. These two are corresponding. Either way, we get 44 is equal to 7x plus 9. So if we subtract 9 from both sides, we get 35 equals 7x, and 5 is equal to x. So again, variety of ways of doing things, but you would still get the same answer.